This season was supposed to be the building blocks of a new era of Manchester United, but instead it's become our worst season in modern history with a squad that is mid-table at best. Next season we've got no Champions League, no Europe full stop, one game a week, and no certainty that anything will get any better. We have quite literally hit rock bottom. So what happens now? Well, we need to begin by looking into the effects that losing the Europa League final against Spurs is going to have on our near future at the very least. Because the likes of Gyökeres coming in now are all but confirmed to not be happening. Missing out on Champions League is one thing. We've missed out on the Champions League before in the past. But missing out on Europe altogether, full stop, is something we have never experienced. It's never happened to us during the last 10, 12 years of our rebuilding. And so we don't know what the knock-on effect will be. We've signed the likes of Cunha without it, which is obviously huge for us because it goes to show that somehow the We Are Man United pull still exists. But if we keep coming 17th, 16th, 14th, that will wear off very quick. We also have to have the uncomfortable conversations regarding Ruben Amorim. Now, I don't want him to be sacked. I like the guy. However, his credibility going into the next season will obviously have been dented somewhat. Obviously, you would have hoped that Ineos knew that he didn't have the players needed to play the system that they hired him to play. However, I would imagine if you asked them when they did hire him, do you expect to be 17th in the Premier League? They would have said, not a chance. I don't think Ineos expected things to be this bad. There is no twisting it. There is no sugarcoating it. It is catastrophic. There's been multiple talks already about him leaving the job, let alone being sacked. There was talk about him possibly wanting to leave in January and having to be talked out of it, although he came out publicly and said that he never wanted to quit. But then after the final, he said that if the fans or the board ever think that he's not the right guy, then he will quit or he'll leave without any compensation needed to be given to him. It's almost like he's indirectly saying to the board, hey, if you want to sack me, I ain't going to say no. So on one hand, he's saying he doesn't want to quit, but on the other hand, he's also saying things that make it sound like he would be fine if he got sacked, which obviously conflict each other. But it's not just Ruben Amorim's credibility now that's been dented, it's also the squad in general is incredibly torn. It's in turmoil. There's no other way to say it. Bruno could leave, and going into this final, I didn't want him to leave at all. I still don't want him to leave. He's the closest thing we've had to a legend in the past 12 years. However, after losing the Europa League and the amount of money that we are bleeding as a club, a £100 million plus Saudi bid, unfortunately, has to be considered. That is just a fact at this point, unfortunately. Now, like I said, I don't want him to be sold. However, you have to look at it almost like perhaps a Luis Suarez or Coutinho sale for Liverpool. Coutinho was one of their best players, but they got, a £130 million bid came in and they, yeah, sure, we'll go with that. And then they went out and bought the likes of Salah, Fabinho, Van Dijk, Alisson, their entire skeleton, the entire rebuild began with the sale, albeit reluctantly to the fans, of Coutinho. That being said, we're not Liverpool. And Ineos could quite easily, unfortunately, make the wrong decisions coming into the summer. Realistically, Amorim needs a minimum of 5 new signings, preferably all of them starters. We're looking at number 10s, striker, possibly 2 strikers, a goalkeeper, a right wing back if you want to move Ahmad. I personally think Ahmad's best position is the right wing back anyway. And then he also needs to get rid of the same amount of players. 5+ players need to be gone. Is that going to happen? No, it isn't. Unfortunately, it just isn't. Realistically, I'm expecting 3 first teamers to come in for Amorim and maybe a 4th for squad depth, with a look into starting. Someone like Milinkovic-Savic from Torino. Come in with a view to probably replace Onana some point in the rest of the season. As for the outgoings, I don't think he's going to get rid of 5, 6, 7, 8 players like he needs to, like the club need to. I think they'll probably get rid of Sancho, Rashford, Antony, Højlund, and Garnacho. That's 5. Fair enough. But I could easily see the Garnacho or the Højlund ones being loans with an option to buy. The exact same as what we've just had with Rashford, Sancho, and Antony, I could see happening with Højlund and Garnacho. They won't be sold when they need to be. And unfortunately, that's not good enough. Now, obviously, that can have a positive effect. Perhaps you can have like a Højlund might have an Antony-esque season elsewhere. You know, obviously, Antony's gone to Real Betis and he's balling out there. And for that reason, his value is probably going to go up. But there is no guarantee that we're even going to be able to sell him to Real Betis. We've seen it happen with Sancho. Go to Dortmund, do all right. Dortmund social media account waxing lyrical about how everyone was wrong about Sancho and he's great, and then the club don't even want to buy him in the end anyway. And so for this rebuild to start good and start quickly and start correctly, these players need to be sold, not loaned. Because otherwise, Amorim is going to need at least, and he probably still would even if we didn't loan players out and actually sold the deadwood, he's going to need at least 3 summers to get things right. Do Ineos have the patience for that? Do the fans have the patience for that? Does Amorim himself even have the patience for that? We've seen how he's flirted with the idea of walking away within just 6 months. Can he do 3 more years of it? Now, obviously, Ineos' business model is quite clearly buy young talent. It's the same kind of shit that Chelsea are trying to do, because at least then, if they do fail, you can still flog them on for a bit of money. Like Højlund. Don't get me wrong, 72 million was an absolute joke and never should have been paid that much. But because his stock is still high in Italy, you would expect he's still going to get 40 million back for him. Garnacho obviously came through the youth. He's going to be 50 million pure profit. We've seen Ineos signing the likes of Heaven, Chido Obi, Kone, but a rebuild can't happen just by buying young talent. Now, obviously, they've got Cunha, and I think this is the one thing that almost gives me a shred of hope and belief in Ineos' project this summer, and it's the fact that they are clearly prioritizing Prem proven, but not just any kind of Prem proven, players that are ready to take it up to that next level for a decent bit of money. We're not being ripped off. We're not trying to buy the already best of the best Prem players. It's not like we're going to a prime Chelsea with a prime Hazard and saying, give it to me. Rather, we're doing what we did as a club all those years, 15, 20 years ago. We're buying from the Prem because that lowers the barrier of entry into performing well for United. It's why Bayern have always dominated their league, because, just buy all the best proven players in Germany because you know they're more likely to succeed then. I don't know what the actual data is, but I would assume if you took all the transfers in the Premier League that come from other Premier League clubs and compared them to the success rate of transfers that come from abroad, it would be a huge difference. And so whilst as much as I would love or have loved to have had Gyökeres, I'm not too sad about Delap as long as he's not the only one, because you do need some experience. Cunha is experienced. He's young, but he's experienced. If we got the likes of Mbemo, young but experienced, Delap is not. Dorgu was not. Even the likes of Ahmad, who we signed years ago, are not experienced at this top level yet. I say top level like we're top level. We're not. We're probably going to finish 17th, but you know what I'm trying to say. Now, that's not to say that you can't buy young talent and they do fit in straight away. Lenny Yoro is a prime example. However, if you want to buy a Lenny Yoro in every single position, good fucking luck. Because unfortunately, there isn't a Lenny Yoro for every position available on the market at a decent price. And so if this rebuild, this Amorim project with Ineos does flop, what are their plans for after? Because that is also a big problem. They've gone for Amorim. They are building a squad for Amorim. They're going to spend their last remaining hundreds of millions on Amorim. What do you do if it goes wrong? You have to replace him with another back three manager, another player who plays a similar enough system, someone who can at least use the players he's bought, because otherwise you're going to have a Ten Hag situation where Ten Hag came in, he got rid of some of our players and he bought in his own players, and guess what, it set us back years because they were terrible for the most part. Now you have Amorim, you bring him in, he ships on a lot of Ten Hag's players, he brings in his own, you ship him out, and then you bring in someone who wants to play a 4-3-3. What are they going to do with Dorgu? What are they going to do having a load of number 10s in the squad? Now, obviously, it's not impossible to replace Amorim with another manager who can at least use his players. Xabi Alonso would have worked. That obviously isn't going to happen. He's gone to Real Madrid. Inzaghi, again, odds are that probably isn't going to happen unless we pick it up. Conte could do it. Whether you'd want him to is a different story. Realistically, the most likely candidates would be someone of the same ilk as Oliver Glasner or a Julian Nagelsmann if he hadn't just signed that contract extension with Germany. In fact, when Amorim signed, that's what I thought Ineos' plan was going to be. Have Amorim come in, buy some back three players, take a gamble on him, see how he did, and then if he failed, after the end of his, 2.5 year contract it was, or 1.5 year contract, you could go and get Nagelsmann, as Amorim's contract actually expired around the same time the World Cup would end, and then maybe you could entice Nagelsmann to come in. Obviously, he signed a contract extension, I believe, with Germany, which makes things difficult, but not impossible. So again, I would not be surprised if in 2 years, if the Amorim project fails, Ineos try and throw everything, whatever little bit that is that they have left, at someone like Julian Nagelsmann. But of course, it's in the best interest of every single person with any kind of connection to Manchester United, be it player, manager, staff, or fans, that the Amorim project doesn't need to come to that. Realistically though, what are your hopes? Let me know down below, subscribe, ding that notification bell, and follow me on Twitter. But until then, peace.